everybody. Oh my gosh, I can't believe everyone's here. This is so fun.
It is fun. So a couple years ago, you graduated college with a degree in broadcast journalism.
Yes.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I'm ready to be on TV. Hello, world, here I am.
Yeah.
And you get hit with
Like
no after no.
10 no's
After
maybe?
no.
Yeah.
Tell me about the last no that you heard that made you decide to start saying yes to yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit of a backstory. I graduated from high school in 2009, and when I was a little kid, I knew I wanted to be like on Good Morning America. I knew I wanted to be on E! I would record. My parents like gave me a camcorder, one of those 90s camcorders, right? And I would create my own like little shows. And I knew very on that I was meant to be on TV. And so when I got into college, I, just as social butterfly as I am, I was heavily involved with all these media organizations. I started my own show called La Bella Vida, which was a syndicated talk show, vibe show for students in the Latino community at Texas State University. I did every single internship that you could do. I was at Ken's 5. I interned at my hometown in the Valley. And then I got an internship with WOAI, and it was for SA Living. And I was on for about a year. So when I graduated college 3 years. So I went through college real fast. And I just did all these interviews. I knew San Antonio was going to be my home. I really love San Antonio compared to Austin. And so I interviewed at Ken's 5. I interviewed like almost every single station, again, WOAI. And then I saw this cool job posting for a new TV show that was coming to San Antonio.
Hint, hint, hint.
Hint,
Any
hint,
guesses
hint.
what it was?
Hint, hint, hint. They were looking for MMJs, which is multimedia journalists. And I knew it. I was like, oh my goodness, I need to send them my demo reel. And immediately I sent them my demo reel, and within maybe 48 hours, I got a response back. And first they wanted me to send in a couple of things before I got to the next round. And when I got to the next round, it was an actual interview for this new TV show called SA Live. Mind you, Katie was not here at this point. This was another, I guess it was another round of people that were going to do it. It was two different producers. I got to interview with Fiona, did not get to interview with the other person that was on before.
Right.
But it was this new TV show. And I went in and I was just like, be authentic. That's one thing that I've learned is just be authentic. And it was a great interview. I mean, Fiona and I were vibing, but they didn't say exactly what I was going to do because the MMJ position was going to be sort of a reporter, not so much on the show, like, you know, being an anchor, because hello, you have to have credibility before you do that. And I remember calling my parents and was like, oh my gosh, like, first off, shout out, I love KSAT. Like, KSAT is one of my favorite TV stations. I don't really watch the other ones.
It's
an ABC affiliate, and I'm super obsessed
jam.
with ABC. I was an ABC girl growing up. And so I left that interview like, okay, this is it. You know, like, I got it. And I didn't hear anything. So what I did was I went the extra mile, and I emailed the person that was in charge and just be like, hey, just want to follow up, you know, like, just want to follow up. Here is an extra clip if you need an extra clip. And nothing. It wasn't until about maybe 3 weeks after that interview that I was on Facebook, and I found out who the people were going to be on Facebook. I didn't even get like a rejection.
Just completely ghosted you.
Just completely ghosted me. And I was like, you know what? I'm so tired of interviewing. Like, and my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he was like, I don't want to burst your bubble, but have you ever thought that maybe television is not what you're meant to do? And
what was your response to
that?
that?
Oh my God.
Like,
I was like,
what?
Can you not, like, what? Like, what? I'm meant to be on TV. Like, what are you talking about? Like, no. And it wasn't until one night where I felt like a failure. I mean, I left the Valley telling everyone that I was going to be on TV, but I didn't know what type of reporter I wanted to be because I wasn't fixated on your regular reporting. I didn't want to go to Abilene.
You didn't fit in the box.
I didn't fit in the box. I didn't want to go to Abilene. I didn't want to go to West Texas. I wanted to be on like a lifestyle show. And one night, I had no idea. I felt really like a failure. I was like, oh my God, am I going to have to go back home? And somebody who lives in the Valley who came up here, you don't want to go back home. You want to, be up here. And my best friend, who you will learn a little bit more about in the podcast, she told me, what if you can't find a job and that's because it doesn't exist? So, go create it. And when she said that to me, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean it doesn't exist? And then from people were telling me, have you thought about PR? You have like a great personality. It's very, like you get to market. And I think maybe I was more in love. I mean, when I think about my childhood and think about the way I was really involved with television, I think I was more in love with the PR aspect, the marketing. I really had a love for the way they would market the promos for ABC and like the TCAs. I'm the Television Critics Association. Like, I'm telling you, I'm a TV buff and I could talk about television all the time, but I think I was more in love with the fact of the way they were, the psychology behind the promos and everything. Yeah. And so I said, you know what, maybe me trying to get involved in television is just, maybe that's not my thing. Maybe I need to go into PR. And so that night, that was actually, it's July 9th, right? Or July 28th. I don't know what day it is. It actually happened at this moment 4 years ago.
Today,
around this time, I made the switch to go into PR. And then from there, everything just changed for the better.
Yeah. So we all see you about town now, at all the different events. And, of course, we see you on social media, and you have a great community and a great following. But back then, 4 years ago, when you decided to make the switch, you didn't have that community yet.
No.
So what were the early days of the social butterfly girl like?
Okay, so the cool thing is I had these internships, right, at these TV stations, and I'm sort of indifferent about what they tell you about internships because it did not work for me. But what did work was I was able to keep these relationships with certain people that were on. So I was an intern at SA Living, and the guests that would come on the show, I would mic them up, and I would get to hear their story. And so I kept in touch with maybe about 3 or 4 of the guests that were on the show. And because I had that, so like my first job here in San Antonio was called Stone Oak Info. I was a news and video content director for this little tiny startup in Stone Oak. And I was basically going out and recording little commercials for the different businesses in Stone Oak. And I was doing their social media. I was doing like blogging, even though back then it was not really called blogging. But I was doing all that. And so I was able to meet people in the community. And one thing that really helped me was the fact that I had these relationships. And so when Social Butterfly Gal got started, I took a public relations job with a little tiny startup. And I started Social Butterfly Gal because I really wanted to document what I was doing in my PR job. Because I felt like, well, if I'm using my skills, they're going to see that I'm very committed and I'm determined. So they're going to want to really hire me full time. So I was like, let's get this thing going. And so I was able to really, anytime we would go, so I got the opportunity to work for the Fashion Week. It's like San Antonio Fashion Week. And I was able to really network with all these women. And from there, I just like kept those relationships going. And because I had those relationships going, people would just start, introducing me, and just networking. It was
my parents would always say to me, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right. Yeah.
And I never believed them until I finally got like my first job. And I got my first job because of somebody that I knew. I got my second job because of somebody that I knew. I got my third job because of somebody that I knew.
Yeah.
And it's still that way. And every time I travel, I always try and set up meetings with other professionals in those cities just to meet them.
Yeah.
Just to know, like, not with any intention other than trying to get to know them.
And at that point, I mean, Social Butterfly Gal was not even going to be a business. Like I didn't have that at the top of my head.
Yeah.
I mean, Social Butterfly Gal was just a blog, and it was so when I was working with the PR company, it was called Bell and Bold PR, and one of the ladies that was kind of the co-founder, she went to Texas State, so we really bonded there. And so really what I was doing was, after every single event that we would, do, I would blog about it. And I developed a following because I was sharing, and a lot of my parents' friends in the Valley thought it was pretty cool. And they were like, hey, this girl's doing, she's going to all these events, and so I was able to develop that following, and really I wanted to get hired by them because I was like, oh, again, I never thought I was going to start a business.
Yeah.
And so I was able to just really hone in on my skills, which was social media. And at that time, this is 2013, 14, social media wasn't even near what it is now. I mean, businesses were not really using it. Social media, I believe Snapchat had just launched in 2013. Instagram had just added video as well. I mean, it was completely different. And so I was just like, I'm going to use SBG to just hone in. And then I found out that the two girls that owned that public relations firm were splitting up. And so I was like, great, back to the job board, back to, and so I started to apply for public relations jobs. And the same thing, no. And at that point, the girl that was working for Bell and Bold, she said, I'm going to go on my own, and I want you to come along. I can't really pay you a lot, but I can't really pay you a lot, but I want you to become my admin assistant. So I said, fine. I took a receptionist job as a part-time job, and I said, I'm going to give you my all. Whatever you can give me money-wise, I'll take it. I don't care. And then from there, it ended up to where I was becoming her social media manager for her clients. And it was I had I think 6 or 7 clients that I was doing social media for, and it was enough. She was paying me enough that I could leave my my receptionist job.
Nice.
And then she said, I'm engaged. And I was like, oh, cool. What does that mean? She was moving to Austin.
Oh, great.
So we had to have that hard discussion of what's going to happen. And that was when I decided, you know what? I think I could do this on my own. I think I have the following. I think I have the skills, and she really trained me to do it on my own. So kind
of a mentor to you?
Very a mentor. I love her. She's one amazing lady. And what was so interesting, and I think what I've learned throughout all the no's, was that you only need that one person to see and to have confidence in your abilities.
Yes.
I think it was so difficult for me because I didn't fit into the box of what a reporter should look like. I was very vibrant and very kind of I'm going to do what I want to. I was very authentic. And I think this is just my personal opinion, but what I was learning in class at Texas State, I don't think they tell you the behind the scenes of the business side of the television industry.
No, they don't.
And I think what was so difficult was I had this obsession and love of the fantasy of what a reporter or an entertainment reporter would look like. And I didn't know, of course there's hard work, but I didn't know that you get fired, you get laid off. People, it's happened here in town.
There's salary caps. You don't get paid very much at all when you work in television.
Right.
People don't realize that.
People don't realize that. And I think that was my thing, was I was in love with something that just didn't exist.
It's
and
true.
I didn't want to accept the fact, because in my head I was like, no, I'm going to be the next Oprah, or I felt that that's kind of what clouded my, maybe this is not really what I want to do.
Right.
And that was really hard for me to realize, that the one thing that I really wanted to do with my life was not really what was meant for me.
You had those blinders on. You were like, this is it. And as soon as you took the blinders off and were like, oh, there's all of these other possibilities out there, it started the wheels turning.
And my childhood as well. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley. I don't know if you guys know where the Rio Grande Valley is, but it's really south, down south, right near the border. Mexico is my home. 5 minutes away is Mexico. It's very close-minded down there. If you stay in the valley, if you leave, it's like, wow, you made it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that when I was in the Valley, I don't think I knew the possibilities of what the world had to offer and
right.
the confidence that I had within myself. If you were to have met me 10 years ago, you would have never thought that this is what I was going to be. I was very just lazy. I didn't have confidence. And I struggle a lot with anxiety and depression. And like, I'm a very big perfectionist and type A. And so I think when Social Butterfly Gal was getting started, it was very weird to people around me. Like, what are you doing? Why aren't you not going to what society is telling you to do? Like, you know, what you're taught at a young age. You're supposed to go to college, and then you get a job, and then you get married, and it's like boom, boom, boom. And that wasn't what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it scared a lot of people.
The timelines are what you set up for yourself are always going to disappoint you. So the anxiety and the depression and the struggle and the hustle, all those are happening to you in the beginning.
Yeah.
4 years later, 3 years later, still happening?
I think it's tamed a little bit. I think what is so interesting about entrepreneurship is that it is always changing. You are never the same person. Your business is never the same. And I started Social Butterfly Gal just as a blog. And I was categorized in the influencer, like the blogger world.
Right.
And what was confusing a lot of people was because I was part of that blogger world, people didn't really know that I was a business owner. You know, like I actually do social media strategy and social media management. And so like I do social media campaigns. And so it was very hard in the beginning because I would get offered these, oh, well, we're opening a new boutique. We want you to come out. And I'm like, that's not what I do. And I would take those opportunities so I can meet people. And then it wasn't until maybe about 2016 that I rebranded and I stopped going to all those things. And then even in 2017, I mean, my business is not the same. It is. I feel
even you said from the beginning of this year to now.
Oh my God, within 6 months, like from January of 2018 to now, my business has changed maybe like 5 or 6 times because I've grown so much and then I've got to experience a lot of things. I would say maybe my anxiety is not as bad, but I still have fear. I can't let go. I wish I could be able to let go.
Right.
And I feel that sometimes I have to control things because I'm a huge control freak.
Same.
That I have to control the way this is like a client is supposed to be, or maybe this is what I'm meant to be. And a huge lesson in that was our conference that we did. I really learned a lot about myself and a lot about what just going and doing and not being that. So I say it's not as much as, I mean, in the beginning I was so scared. I was having panic attacks. And it is money, security, like you're luckily, thankfully, I was my dad, when I told my parents that I was thinking about going to start my own business, my dad is an attorney. And so he was like, we're setting you up with an LLC. So I was very fortunate to where I didn't have to worry about, well, what is this? I mean, he got on the phone with the Secretary of State and was like, your papers are drafted. And I was like, what? What does that mean? I mean, I had to educate myself on what an LLC meant. What does that mean taxes wise? Like I was really fortunate to have supportive parents that in the beginning, I didn't have to take out a loan. I'm an only child. So it was very comforting to know that they had my back. And so in the beginning, when I was needing that extra funding, they were very gracious enough to say, if that's what you're meant to do, then we'll support you. And I know now, especially as I've gotten older, I've really appreciated that because parents, I mean, some parents, they're like, you're crazy. What? Go get a job, But when I told my parents, and I think they kind of knew, like, this girl's meant for something bigger. I could already tell that my parents knew if that's what you want to do, go and do it.
Right.
And I think like their support throughout that has really helped Social Butterfly Gal get to where they need to be.
Do you think that they gave you that entrepreneurial spirit too? Or do you think there's a certain person in your life that really taught you how to do that? Or
I think
YouTube?
No. So Michelle Vallejo, who is my best friend, she's also the co-founder of Hustle and Socialize, our conference.
And you guys grew up together.
We grew up together in the
Mission.
Valley. Yeah. So I'm from Mission, Texas, again in the Valley. And I met her at 10 years old. And her family is entrepreneurs. They owned a big flea market it's a pulga. They own a flea market in the Valley. And so when I was growing up, I was surrounded because I would go help her during the weekends. If I was going to go over to her house, she would be like, hey, I'm working today. Can you help me? And so I would sell nachos to these people that were shopping. I was selling, and it was hard because they all spoke Spanish. So, I mean, I speak Spanish, but I'm not let's be real. I'm not really where I need to be. And so I was learning how to count in Spanish, giving money whenever they would, they would give me a $20 bill. And she was, at a young age, I wanted to go to New York. I wanted to live in New York. As you guys knew, I'm a huge Britney Spears fan, and I would choreograph these dances. I thought I was meant to be on Juilliard.
It's not too late.
Yeah, it's never too late.
It's not too late.
And in fact, Pete and I have said, Pete, my husband, we were like, let's just go live in New York for a year, That's something we want. But I think my parents, I think because I was an only child, and I think they just wanted me to be happy.
Yeah.
Ultimately. I think they were like, if that's what you want to do, then go do it.
Yeah.
And Michelle was my force because I got to be around entrepreneurs. And I think she kind of taught me what an entrepreneurial mindset was.
Yeah.
And her and I, it's really funny, she was the one who went off to New York. She went to Columbia University. And I stayed at Texas State, and I would go visit her a lot when we were in college. And her and I actually were going through some of the same issues. It's like, if you guys watch Grey's Anatomy, you know how Meredith and Christina are, where they kind of go through the same things together. They're a parallel.
Yeah.
That's how Michelle and I are.
So which one of you is Meredith and which one is?
I'm Meredith, she's Christina.
Okay.
Totally. She
All
is
right.
the Christina Yang.
All right.
And so she kind of molded me really into thinking of being an entrepreneur, because herself, she's like a crazy, sometimes I don't understand her life because she travels and she lives in the Valley.
She lives in the Valley. And isn't she in the nonprofit sector?
No, she works full time with her flea market. And then she still has a job in New York. So she'll go to New York, and then she's got Hustle here. And now she's building a community here in San Antonio. And so I feel like having her as my best friend, because I did not have siblings, she is ultimately my sister. I was really influenced and really saw that you can think bigger.
Yeah.
You can think bigger than what. And when I got those no's, I'm being serious. When I got the first no from Ken's Five, and I already knew that interview was going south. In the interview, I was like, ooh, I don't think my brand, I didn't know what a brand was, but I kind of knew, I don't think that's what I want to do.
Right.
And I didn't love it so much to say, hey, I'm going to sacrifice this and do it. And I think after that interview, and the one with WOAI, I think it was just you know what? Yeah, I don't think this is what I meant to do. And she was the one that was like, yo, start your stuff. Start it. Just do it.
Shout out to Michelle.
Dude, for real.
Shout out to the BFFs. Y'all have BFFs?
Yeah.
BFFs, yeah.
Yeah. And
in business and life, they're always there for you.
I really feel she was put in my life for a reason. And
no such thing as coincidence.
Yeah, we sat next to each other in 5th grade. We do say 9/11 pushed us together because we experienced 9/11 together as children. But we're polar opposites, but we fit so well.
The yin and the yang.
The yin and the yang, yeah. And she was really, when I was starting SBG, she was helping me mold what SBG is and helping me to think about my brand, because it's not just a business, it is a brand. I'm creating something that's going to last for more than 20 years. Whenever, God willing, I have kids, if my future daughter wants to take this, or I'm creating something, not just something right now. I'm creating a long-lasting thing. Yeah.
So Michelle is not just your BFF now; she's your business partner.
She is.
And I'm so excited because just a few weeks ago, you had the first Hustle and Socialize conference, which was a conference for women business owners and just kind of women professionals in general.
Right.
And it was a blast.
Thanks.
I was so proud of you to bring everybody together. It was 100 women.
Yeah,
more than
120.
100 women.
120. And I just want to say, full disclosure, we started planning this a year ago, but we didn't get the word out we started in April. So from April to June, we were able to sell out a conference.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
So how did it feel when you were standing up there? And to your credit, I mean, you let everybody lead that day. You had a bunch of professionals there and you gave them the platform to spread their knowledge. But, you know, being there, seeing everybody, learning, taking notes, taking pictures together, being crazy on social media. How did that feel that you kind of brought everybody together on that day?
It was so just literally that day was, this is why this is why there was no's in my life. Like, this is why things happen for a reason. When I started the Social Butterfly Gal, when I transitioned it into a business, I was working with a business coach. And one thing she had asked me when we were working together was, where do you see Social Butterfly Gal in 5 years? And that's like always the question. And I hate that question sometimes because it's like life never goes according to plan.
Next minute?
Right.
Tomorrow?
Life never goes according to plan. But I told her, I said, I want to host a conference. I want it to be a conference.
5 years ago?
This was in 2015.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so this was, 2016. This was 2016 because I started working with Chi-Chi in 2016. And she was a business coach out of London. So like Social Butterfly Gal launched in 2015, but I didn't go full time until 2016. So in 2016, when I was working with her, she had asked me, where do you see SBG in 5 years? And I said, well, I want to host a conference. I want it to be a women's conference. I don't know any details about that, but I know that's what I want to do because I'm very passionate about empowering women. Because what I've seen growing up in the Valley is that, especially if you're in a Hispanic household,
right,
you don't really find that. It's the Hispanic traditions, the men lead.
Yeah, that is definitely something that I want to ask you because I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. A lot of my listeners are not from San Antonio. That is so foreign to me.
And one thing that I noticed just being surrounded by power, my grandma was a very powerful force in my life. And she passed away in January of 2017. And she was my rock. And I saw how strong she was. And I knew with this conference, part of SBG's mission is not only just social media, but it's also to empower women. And I have a love for that because
that's your passion project.
That is my really big passion project. And so when I got with Chi-Chi and I was telling her about this conference, I told Michelle about it because Michelle, again, she's always been involved with Social Butterfly Gal. Yep. And she was like, we're going to make this happen. And I was like, really? Because I knew I couldn't. That's one thing we all need to recognize is we cannot really do this alone. We need that support system.
We're better together
than we are alone. And I think as women, it's so hard because one thing that we've learned from the conference is that women have been burned by other women. And
I think a lot of us too grew up being burned by other women.
Yes.
Right? Or looking at other women with jealousy or instead of looking at them and being like, oh, great, they're so awesome and let me support them. You're like, that bitch.
Yeah, and that was one thing about Michelle, our friendship, is we've never been like that. When she got to Columbia, I was like, hell yeah, that gives me a reason to go to New York, right?
Like, not like, I was supposed to be in New York.
Right.
That's the opposite.
And when she was like all these things with her student council and everything. I mean, it was just like great. So when we started talking about it, I said, let's do it in 2017. Like, let's do this. Well, I got a little too ambitious because I ended up getting engaged and our wedding was in 2017.
Right.
So it was like, well, can I do a conference and plan a wedding in like a year? And for a while, it was pretty cool. I mean, for a while, it kind of worked out. We're doing this. And then my dad got into a car accident, and it was a minor car accident. And he ended up 2 weeks after the car accident, his brain was bleeding. And he had a concussion. Luckily, thank the Lord, nothing happened.
Right.
They stopped the bleed on time, and he was in the hospital for about like 6-7 days. Yeah. He didn't suffer any memory loss. It could have been a lot worse. He was, I would say, he was sort of back to work within 2 months, 3 months.
But that you also mentioned that specific incident taught you a lot about empowering yourself as a woman.
Yeah.
Because you watched your mom go through that and were like, oh, shoot, like I'm getting married.
Yeah.
I need to make sure I can handle something like this.
My dad was always the person that handled finances, you know, everything. And when that incident happened, I was like, crap, like I have to be, I was woke. Like I woke, right? Like I became woke.
Hashtag woke.
Hashtag woke. I was like, holy shit, I have to go and I need to read all these finance books. I need to surround myself with financial advisors because not only did this happen to my dad, but my husband has a heart condition. He has hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Say that 3 times fast.
Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And it causes sudden death. And I knew, like, going into getting married, like, whoa, I need to empower myself. And so back to the conference, like, so all these things were happening, and I was getting married, and my wedding was huge. We had, like, close to maybe 500 guests. I mean, it was insane. And Michelle...
Go figure, the social butterfly gal has a 500-person wedding.
And so Michelle and I were like, you know what? We can't do it. We can't do it this year. And failure to me, or, like, not just failure, but like saying no. I have a problem with no's.
I think we all do.
Learning that like that was not going to happen was just like crap. I told everybody. I never set a specific date for this conference, but I told everybody we were doing a conference. So what does that mean? Are we failures? Did we fail?
Yeah.
But that's part of the pivoting that we had to learn. It was a blessing that conference, which was supposed to happen September 23rd, 2017, it was a blessing that it didn't happen.
Right.
Because a couple months later, the Me Too movement happened. And it was like, whoa, this is something bigger than what we thought this conference could be. And then we were like, you know what? We need to get on board. And so in 2018, we said, we're doing this June 23rd. And no hold barred. Like, we're doing it.
No matter what happens, it's happening.
No matter what happens, it's happening. And so one thing that we learned throughout that process of the conference was you can't wait until it's perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. Like, I struggle with that a lot because I am such a detailed perfectionist and everything has to be right. Y'all, when we launched, like, full disclosure, when we launched that conference, we only had one speaker. And everyone was like, oh, my God. We had our keynote. We booked our keynote. We booked our venue. Everything leading up to that moment was just by the grace of amazing women who are willing to step up and say...
Support each other.
Yeah, we have people you could connect to. We sold out on our early bird tickets within a week. And that's because we only revealed one speaker.
And
it's amazing.
Your keynote speaker, this is a fun story. Christian is actually on the podcast tomorrow. So if y'all listen to Christian, she's an amazing business owner, PR professional in town. But she actually asked to do that keynote. Yeah. And that it was a huge takeaway for me because we don't often ask for the things that we want.
No.
We sit and wait for people to give them to us.
Right.
Whereas men, they're like, give me this, I want that, I want that, I want that. And that's just something I've learned in, talking with you, talking with Christian. It's okay to be like, hey, do you need a speaker for this event?
Well, I give really props to Marcella because, so Marcella's sitting here in our little audience, but she was very like, I want to be a speaker. I want to do this. And that actually inspired me because I feel like one thing about social media in my business, so like my brand is so many things. It's, I have Swarm Society. I have Hustle and Socialize. I have my actual social media clients. And one thing this year that I'm starting to do is I'm starting to go for the bigger contracts. And Marcella really inspired me because there was a client that I really wanted to go after, and I got it, by the way. But there was a client I really wanted.
Do you want to say who it is?
I don't know if I can. Okay. So, and so I really wanted to go for this client, and
huge client.
It's a huge client.
Can't say it, but it's going to be awesome.
And I was ballsy to say, yo, this is what I can do for you. And I think having Marcella, she DM'd us on Instagram and was like, I would love to be a speaker for the conference. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it's the same thing with all of our women that was part of the conference. Christian gave us like 4 different women. And one of the goals that we really wanted with Hustle and Socialize was we wanted to be a diverse conference.
Right.
I've been to so many events in San Antonio, which I think is hilarious because San Antonio, but I've been to so many events where I'm not being represented. And I knew that going into Hustle and Socialize, I wanted everybody to be represented.
Yep.
African American, Hispanics, Anglos, like we are a diverse city, and it's time we really step up and talk about that, because anytime I go to a women's entrepreneur event, there was one organization I went to and I looked around the room and I was like, there's only 2 Hispanics in this room. How is this possible? And I even tweeted, I was like, this is weird. Like, I'm in San Antonio, Texas. How are there only 2 Hispanic business owners in this room?
It takes a little more work when you're organizing something, or when you own a business, or when, like, just even in doing this podcast or doing a television show, to just go with what comes your way. But you have to work a little harder to find diversity sometimes.
You do.
But you have to.
Yeah.
It's a requirement as far as I'm concerned. If I'm just hiring males to do my job, do the jobs that are needed, I'm not empowering women.
Right.
Even going as far as saying, I need a computer technician. Okay, well, why don't I try and hire a minority? Like, and it might not be the first Google search that comes up, that one pops up. You might have to work a little harder, but you are going to be empowering somebody when you do that.
And when we were looking for a keynote, I love Christian. I mean, I met her when I was interning. And so I just knew, like, this woman has things to say. And I wanted to share, just like you with this podcast, I wanted her to have a platform to share what she needs to share, because all the things that she has to share is valuable. And even to the organizers, I mean, we learned a lot from Christian's story. And it was so amazing, because as soon as we got Christian on board as a keynote, she gave us 5 women that needed this conference. They were like, we want to help. And that's how it just really came about, was women really supporting women helping other women being ready to step up and say, no, we want this, So like that day was so emotional. I think I cried maybe about 3 times.
You were in the bathroom. Whenever I was like, where's Christina? She's over in a corner crying.
I remember just seeing everyone's faces and was like, wow, like the power of women and the power of social media and the power of doing, because you can dream, right? I dreamt, like, I want to have a conference, but we really worked our asses off, and we were like, no, this dream does not need to stay in our heads. This dream needs to happen. This dream needs to, like, go forward.
Yeah. Hashtag do more.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just have one last question, and then we'll kind of open it up. Well, I've got some, like, rapid fire questions.
Say it.
Okay, so when we were 2 weeks ago, I called you and was like, hey, do you want to do this thing? And you were like, yeah, let's do it. Didn't even ask twice, when I was like, I've only had a podcast for a month, but maybe I could get some people in a room. And then here they all are.
It's like so fun.
But you said to me, after talking about pivoting, which you've mentioned a couple times here, about the struggle of owning a business, I said, Christina, when is enough going to be enough for you? Like, when are you going to leave this and get a full-time job? Like, when are you going to take the next step? And you told me flat out, no hesitation, there is no plan B. This is the only plan. And in doing the podcast, it's been so hard and planning and all that stuff, but I just told myself since then, there is no plan B.
Yeah.
This is my only plan.
Yeah.
And that mentality, I think, is just so crucial for succeeding in no matter what you're doing.
Right. And with Social Butterfly Gal, social media wise, there's so much education that needs to be taught about social media. It's not just, let me post a picture and we're cool. It's strategy, it's learning, it's your audience and the psychology behind what they like. And I felt like in the beginning of my business, I got away with charging not really that much. And all the experience that I have now, I charge, in the thousands. And I still get people that don't value the fact that I charge that much. And now I'm starting to get comfortable with saying, this is why this is going to be X amount of money. And it's because of my experience. It's because of the research that goes behind it. It's because of the time and the value. And social media is not a quick, like, oh, I'm going to make tons of money.
Right.
Social media takes time. It could take months. It could take a year. And I feel like with my business, I mean, there have been months where I'm like, crap, how am I going to get through this month? And then I've had those months where I'm like, wow, like what? And I've pivoted a lot because I had always said, so when I started Social Butterfly Gal, I was managing. I was doing social media management. And then in 2017, I stopped and I was doing more strategy. And then I was learning with a lot of my clients that, you know, social media strategy, I could teach someone how to do it, but they have to do it. And they're spending tons of money on me and they're not even doing it. And it makes me look like I'm not a good teacher.
They don't have that.
They don't have the drive.
The results.
Yeah. And so I said, it wasn't until a client who I got now, but the client that I was working with at the time, I realized, you know, another thing that you realize is like, I'm really great at what I do. And maybe I could have 2 or 3 clients and charge more, have a smaller amount of clients, and I stay with their brand for longer than just a 6-month contract, which is what happened. You know, like one of the clients that I got, the next year's a test year, but if we do great, it's a 3-year contract. And so I learned, like, as much as I didn't want to manage social media, instead, let's pivot and let's think about social media for campaigns, where I work with a client for a bigger contract and I help strategize their social media. I help execute it. Social media for events. Social media for events where the client hires me and I create a whole entire strategy for the event and then I do social media for the event. So I was starting to pivot and think about, you know, and then launching Swarm Society. So if you guys don't know what that is, Swarm Society is my membership community. It's $35 a month and women get to be in a private Facebook group. Plus we have in-person workshops. And they're all about professional and personal development. And we have workshops every second Monday of the month at Launch SA. And I wanted to launch that as sort of a service because a lot of the people that wanted to work with me, they couldn't afford my $1,000 packages. So I said,
they can't afford your $1,000 packages, but you also have to come to a realization that your knowledge is worth something. Right. And I have a lot of people that call me and they're like, hey, can you teach me how to use this camera? Or can you tell me how to start a podcast? And I'm like, yes, but I also have to get all my stuff done in a day. To have 3 hours of my time is valuable. Right. And so I launched Swarm Society. And so that community is amazing. We have about 20 members so far. And we have a Facebook group. We've got like prompts and whatever questions these women have, whether it's professional or personal, we go in the group, you know, we do little happy hours and then we have the actual workshops. So it was realizing like, hey, these things I can do, I just need to pivot. I need to think outside the box and figure out what services, how can I be of value? How can I be of service? How can I help people with what they need? And so now a lot of the things that I'm working on is putting it out into the universe and saying, I want these big city contracts. I want to work with brands that are bigger because one thing that a lot of people don't know is you can save a lot of money by hiring a consultant versus hiring a full-time person. Exactly. Contracting out is huge for businesses.
Right. And so that's what I'm aiming for is, hey, you don't have to hire a full-time social media person. You can contract out, have a little bit of wiggle room, and you're still getting what you need, and I still get what I need, you know? And so I've really, and even now, I don't know what Social Butterfly Gal is going to look like because of the conference. You know, Hustle and Socialize is growing.
Yeah, and it's going to be a monthly meetup, right? Or a monthly or a quarterly.
So what we're doing is we're going to have signature events. So for 2018, it's only going to be for the people that attended the first one. And then starting in 2019, we're going to have events open to the public. And then we're going to have a Hustle and Socialize in the RGV. And then we're going to have Hustle and Socialize into a 3-day conference here.
Yeah. So you are taking this women empowerment movement to the Valley.
We are.
Because and that's it is so needed. Exciting. It is. I mean, to really empower women who... We take living in San Antonio for granted and how many resources we have.
Well, and I think, too, I was so ready to leave the Valley. I was like, peace out, y'all. I'm not coming back. And it's funny because the parallel, Michelle ended up going back to the Valley. And so I just knew that as a kid, I was meant for more. And it's not a diss to my hometown, but it's just like, okay, well, I know there's more out there. And so now, being in the position that I'm at, I'm like, you know what? Michelle still lives down there. Why don't we take what we have and collaborate? And one of the hustlers that was at the conference, she works for Lift Fund in the Valley. Nice. And Lift Fund is our partner here in San Antonio for the conference.
It's a great resource.
It's a really great resource for women. And so it was one of those things where, like, you know, we could replicate this and have it be for our hometown so that women down there can know that these things exist. And one thing that they really want to do in the Valley is they want to bring people from the outside. They want to bring people from San Antonio down there. And so we just felt like, you know what, if we're going to expand, because we really want to expand in different locations, but if the first location that we're going to expand is our home, that's where we're born and raised, you know, that's where it molded us. It taught us what we needed to do, and we want to give back.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of you for saying that you're proud of yourself. I think that's a really hard thing to admit sometimes.
It is. I still feel like sometimes it's hard because I get so many people that are like, you are hustling and you slay. And I'm like, girl, if you only knew like what my head tells me.
Life's a mess behind the scenes.
Yeah. I'm like, if you only knew what my head tells me, because like I still cry all the time. Like,
we're all scared. We're all afraid of what other people are thinking of us. And one of my favorite quotes comes from Leslie Knope. Do you guys know Leslie Knope? Parks and Recreation. She says, I'm woman enough to admit that I inspire myself. Oh. I'm woman enough to admit that I inspire myself. So, a few questions, and then we're going to take it from the audience.
Okay.
If you could have coffee with any celebrity, who would you get coffee with?
Shonda Rhimes and Oprah.
I'm so surprised you didn't say Britney Spears.
I love Britney, don't get me wrong, but Shonda Rhimes, like hardcore Grey's Anatomy fan, her story, if you've ever read her book, Year of Yes, her book, Year of Yes, really inspired me to be a doer. Yeah. And she talks about being a doer and not, you know, we always say we dream big, but to be a doer. And her story is just fantastic. And I just want to be, like, she's my role model. Yeah. She is my role model. That's awesome. And of course, Oprah. Who wouldn't want to have coffee with Oprah?
She's on top of my list. God. She's also on my list to interview here.
Yes,
so if you guys want to just, like, start tagging her right now.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yes, that's in the suggestion box.
Oprah.
Mission to get Oprah on the... Okay, so second question. When's the last time you were embarrassed?
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So when we were pitching to speakers for Hustle and Socialize. Okay, I have two. I actually have two. Okay. So when we were pitching speakers to Hustle and Socialize, we emailed this person, right? And she's like fire. Like when I met her, I was like, holy moly, I really want to be around you. So I created the graphic to introduce her on social media.
Oh, no.
And it turns out that we accidentally put her wrong name. Like, she uses her middle name. And she wrote us back some feedback. But all feedback is good. Yeah. You want to have good feedback. Yeah. You need that feedback. So while I was embarrassed, because she kind of she went in this long email and was like, your brand is, everyone has a brand and you don't want to tarnish that brand. So it's really important that you ask before you put something out on social media. And because I'm a social media person, I was like, damn it, I should know.
Yeah.
And so I felt
you're only human. At the same time, you're only human. And
right. And then another one was, I'm on the board of Women in Digital here in San Antonio. And we had a guest speaker who was the founder of Women in Digital. She came to San Antonio last week.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
And I was like, oh my God, Facebook Live time, right? I didn't get her permission to go Facebook Live. Mm-hmm. And she told me in the middle of Facebook Live, stop recording. And I felt so horrible because I was like, I should have asked you.
Yeah.
I should have asked you. Why am I that? I should have known. But it's okay.
That's also a really good thing to point out, too, I think, in this digital age is, to always get people's permission.
Yeah.
We have a really open environment where I work, and people come in all the time just instantly Facebook Living. And I'm like, whoa, we might be doing things that we don't want to be publicized or saying things.
Yeah.
And I want to know when I'm representing my job and when I'm representing the podcast, and like, not that I'm doing anything radical when I'm not representing the job, but like, you want to make sure you have it turned on.
And I think too, it is like, I am human and I do make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Like, so I'm learning all the time about social media and about how to go about it with clients. I mean, when I started managing clients, there's, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of this restaurant called Urban Bricks Pizza. I was doing their social media and their hashtag is legalize marinara. Well, guess what? When you're scheduling on Twitter, autocorrect will change it to a different thing. Luckily, I caught that tweet before it went out. But I mean, one thing that I've learned in my career is like, you're never perfect. You are always learning. And I think being around, one thing that I love about this year is that I'm being stretched in so many ways. I'm learning what delegation is. I'm learning about leadership and how to be a better leader. I'm learning about, how do I want to grow Social Butterfly Gal? Do I want it to grow? And admitting that sometimes I still make mistakes. And it's so hard because I feel like on social, you have to look and seem like you're so great at what you do and you're so perfect. And it's like, no, man, I forgot to ask this amazing woman if I could film her. And yeah, it was a little embarrassing, but it was all okay. Like, it was okay.
It was okay.
Yeah.
And it will be okay.
Yeah.
All right. Questions from everyone?